Hello, Ken. How are you this fantabulous evening? Change it up there. You like that?
That was very Tales of the City. You'll have to watch it to understand the reference, but Marianne and Fantabulous. So I'm great, Dan. Thank you. How about yourself? How you doing tonight?
Doing radical. I'm just switching it up there too. That's an 80s reference. You don't know it, look it up. So tonight, we're talking about high anxiety. Is this about smoking weed and getting anxious because you're smoking weed? What's this all about, Ken?
It's not about smoking weed, and it's not about the Mel Brooks movie from the 70s either. It's about the situation that a lot of my clients find themselves in, and I think this could be useful to our listeners this evening. We've been through a 2-year pandemic, and man, a month or so ago, we started to see all of the infection rates dropping, hospitalizations dropping, death rates dropping, hot spots around the United States cooling down. And I think a lot of people started feeling like there's really some hope. Maybe after this last wave, with the number of people we have vaccinated, with the number of people who got infected and survived, maybe we're actually pulling through this. And after 2 years of a lot of anxiety around this virus and what would happen if you got infected, what was happening to family members, the tragedy of having lost almost 1 million Americans to date, that maybe, just maybe, we're headed back to something that sort of resembled normal, or whatever that new normal for us is going to be. And then about 10 days ago, after a very rapid buildup to it, we saw the attack on Ukraine. And in conversations with my clients this past week, coaching them, talking to them about what's going on with their teams, anxiety was something that kept coming up. People would have been anxious over this war anyway, but the fact that there was just, I think, an exhaustion from the pandemic and the anxiety that people had over that, and the impact and effect it could have on them and on their loved ones, on their friends, on their work, that combined with having to steel ourselves again for something that is actually incredibly frightening, is proving to be a bit overwhelming. And so tonight I wanted to talk about some coping strategies. What can people do, not to make it go away, but what can people do so they can better equip themselves to deal with the situation in which we find ourselves? And so that's what the topic's about tonight, Dan. And we've got 7 or so suggestions that we want to share with everybody who's listening tonight. I also want to just put out there, if you've been listening to us and you enjoy this, you find value in it, we'd love it if you would subscribe and if you would share this with others. So Dan, back to you.
Having a panic attack, just hearing about all the stuff we have to talk about. No, I'm not. But I say that because people use different language to describe what probably is a very similar emotion, right? So some people will say, I'm feeling depressed. Some people will say, feeling anxious or anxiety. Some people will say, I'm having a panic attack. Some people will say, I'm really afraid of what's going to happen. We have different language to describe probably a very similar emotional state. And I'll just say it's a negative emotional state. We don't want to feel this way. So the topic is, if you're feeling one of these negative emotional states and you want some sort of strategy, tools, whatever to get out of it, we're not going to get into specifics. Like, we're not going to walk you through step 1 through 7, but in the same concept, we're just going to give you kind of some broad examples, and you could apply them in ways that you see fit and that align with your life. So I had a live coaching session today, coaching / hypnosis. Somebody was, if you see on video, they were in this office here, sitting in this chair here. It was their first session they've ever had. And I love first sessions. Like, to me, they're the most exciting because, especially someone who doesn't study self-help or personal development as their daily activity, to them, almost all of this stuff is new information, right? At best, they've probably seen motivational posters, right? Or like have heard these as phrases or something, or titles of books. But when they get to kind of like hear it put together, it's exciting because it's like, wow, like this information truly can change people's lives. One of the concepts that I think relates to tonight is the concept of when I introduced to this individual a new tool, and I walk them through the steps of how you would use this tool. What I explain to them, I always give this analogy, is at first to do anything, it's a lot of effort. You're in that stage of learning conscious competence where you have to literally think about the steps and do them. The goal is to get them to be so automatic, so routine, that you can do them without thinking about like the physical steps. You just do them. So it's unconscious competence. And I give the analogy of you're building your mental muscle, right? And later in our conversation, it got brought back up. And it got brought back up in the sense of one of the first pieces of advice, which was, I feel like I could be in a really good frame of mind, but then I could be brought out of that by just hearing what's going on in the world. And so what connects to not just building your mental muscle, right? Like practicing tools or techniques or things that you can work on to improve yourself as an individual, but you also have to be aware of like, so that's like the exercise part of your mind. You have to be aware of the diet part of your mind. And the diet part of your mind is like, what are you feeding into your mind? Like, what are you consuming with information that you're letting in through your ears or like seeing with your eyes? And anything that has an impact on you is probably going to have the greatest impact through video. That's why I encourage you to watch us on video so you can see our really good looking faces. But the greatest impact actually is if you just watch, nowadays, I guess people are on their phones, but if you just watch the news or news clips on your phone, or whether things like that are going to have the greatest impact on you. So if you saw clips of things going on in this war right now, it'll have the greatest impact on you. So the first kind of like way you could just make a slight adjustment, you want to be informed, maybe you just turn off the visual piece. Maybe if you just switch from seeing what's going on to reading what's going on, that alone could turn down the intensity at which you feel those emotions. And then also maybe like the quantity of information that you're letting in, that you're feeding your mind. What if instead of reading about cases of COVID or reading about all these details of the war, and maybe you're get a little obsessive compulsive, like you're checking in every whatever, or reading these feeds on social media. What if you just kind of scheduled and said, I'm only going to check once a day, or whatever that is? You come up with your own schedule, but just maybe changing the quantity, right? Or how often you're doing it. Or maybe if you get the information you need, you just stop there because it's so easy. These things are built as taking us down the rabbit hole of, hey, you clicked on that. Let me show you 5 other things you can click on. They're the same piece of information you clicked on before. So anyway, point number 1, lesson number 1 is really about feeding your mind information. And if it's not helping you with overcoming your anxiety, depression, sadness, fear, things like that, then maybe it's time to scale back or scale down. Turn from visuals to just reading, right? Or listening. You can just listen to somebody talk you through it, maybe on a podcast like this, or turn down the quantity at which you're like, it's like smaller portions, right? And how often you eat. So feed your mind to support you.
So that's the mental piece, and that's super important. The physical piece is equally as important. And this is about helping you just reconnect with your body, helping you reconnect with your body, helping you to stay as healthy as possible. We've talked before about exercise and nutrition on this show, the importance of it overall, but I think at a point like this, it's more important than ever. Go for a long walk, get to the gym, exercise in your backyard, exercise if you have a home gym, do it there. Do something physical every day to reconnect yourself with your physical body and to get out of your head, to get yourself focused on your body and to make it healthier. The other piece that goes along with that is what you eat. Oftentimes, when overwhelm happens, and Dan was right to point out, it might be overwhelm, anxiety, depression, upset, whatever emotion you associate with this, oftentimes we want to anesthetize ourselves. And so we anesthetize ourselves through alcohol. It's the most common way, or through smoking weed, or through other drugs, or through overeating. It's like, let me just grab a pint of ice cream and plow through that. I'll feel better, right? Comfort foods, as we love to call them. And while they can be comforting and in small amounts, if this becomes our coping mechanism, we're going to be in bad shape, because it's going to degrade our physical health. If we ignore exercise, if we fall into this mindset of like, things aren't normal in the world, so I can't let them be normal in my own life, and let that be a justification for why we do the things that we do, we're going to feel worse. The point of this broadcast is to talk about what we can do to put ourselves in the best shape possible, mentally, physically, spiritually, to be able to understand what's happening in the world, but not be overrun by it. So, like Dan was talking about with news, limiting consumption, making sure that what you do consume isn't overwhelming to you, so too with the physical aspect. Look at what you eat, make sure it's healthy, get to the gym, go for a walk, do something physical every day to reconnect yourself to your body and to take yourself out of your head and to simply get physical.
And what were we talking about again tonight? No, I use that. I'm sure we've all had that experience. It is something called a pattern interrupt. It's where you're in the middle of a conversation typically, and something disrupts that conversation. It could be a loud fire engine going by and you want to see what the heck is going on. It could be somebody walking into the room. It could be your phone going off and you need to check who's calling or get that call. But whatever it is, when you go back to that same conversation, you almost forget where you left off, because it wasn't a deliberate pause. It was a disrupt type of pause, right? And so that is my next kind of tool for you. It's simply called a pattern interrupt. And for those of you who understand old vinyl records, this will make a lot of sense to you. So imagine you were playing a vinyl record, and in the middle of it playing, I just went and pulled the needle off the record. And then I said, go put it back to the exact spot where I pulled it off. It'd be impossible because there's no labels on those grooves, right? You're not exactly sure. You might guess, but I almost guarantee you would never guess the spot that I pulled it off. It works the same way with the stuff that's causing your anxiety, all of these emotions that we're talking about we don't like. It's that we get fixated and focus so much on the thing that's bothering us. We need to not just say, I got to stop thinking about this, because that's called a deliberate like stoppage. We got to do something to like pull that needle off mid thought. And the easiest way to cause your own pattern interrupt, and this sounds so basic and simple, is to stand up. You're like, how in the world could standing up cause a pattern interrupt? I'll tell you why. Because emotion, these feelings we're having in our body, they're real. Like they're literally chemicals flowing through our blood. If we took your blood sample and we looked at it, we'd like, look, these chemicals are in alignment with emotions you're describing the way you're feeling. And we can change the chemicals flowing through your blood and change your emotions by simply moving our body. Emotion is literally created through motion. So simply the act of standing up changes the way your spine straightens out. Your heart beats a little bit faster. Even if you're in great shape, just the act of standing is moving your body differently, right? You almost like sweat a little. All these things change. I know this to be true. Literally what I studied for my graduate program was physiology and psychology and the connection between the mind and the body. We literally in polygraph would test how much people are sweating, how their heart was beating, all these little things. And I could see the tiniest shift in somebody in their body and watch it change the rest of their body. So this works. So simply, if you notice, maybe you're probably sitting in a chair and you're looking at your phone, or you're sitting at your desk looking at your computer. The fastest and easiest way to just break the pattern is to just stand up and just walk away from the desk, right? Put the phone down, walk away from it, stand up and walk away from it, because that's pulling that needle off, and it gives you that shot. Then not ask the question of what was I focused on, but you can then go, what do I want to focus on now? And by shifting to be able to have the freedom to just pull that needle off and then choose what you want to play next in your mind, is a freedom that you can have instant access to. You don't have to wait for someone else to say, is everything all right? Shake it off, man. It's going to be all right. You take control. And again, simple, pattern interrupt. Stand up, put that phone down, walk away from the computer, and then ask yourself the question, what do I want to focus on now? And it can change everything for you.
I love that a lot of these solutions are really simple. They're not complicated. They don't take a lot of study to be able to do them. You can implement them tomorrow or whenever you're listening to this. You can put these things into practice. Something that I've heard a lot of is, I don't know what to do. I want to be able to have an impact, but I listen to this and I feel like I just get upset and I don't know what I can do. And so I would ask you to think about what kind of contribution you can make. And that may be just a tangible financial contribution. There's a group called Doctors Without Borders that my husband and I contribute to. Basically, it's physicians that volunteer their time to go to war-torn areas to help people in need. And there's a lot of other aid groups out there. I would encourage you to check a site called Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator looks at and assesses nonprofit organizations according to multiple criteria and then ranks them. And if they're ranked highly on Charity Navigator, you can rest assured that you're giving to an organization that's actually going to deliver the goods. And you want to make sure of that so you're not wasting your money. Simple Google search of helping people in Ukraine will reveal any number of organizations. There's organizations that are working on feeding refugees. There's organizations like Doctors Without Borders that are working on medical care. There's several of them out there right now, but check with Charity Navigator and make sure that the organization that you're intending to give to is highly rated so that you know that your money is actually going to be used for the purpose intended. That's one. That can still feel a little bit separate, right? I mean, you're doing something without a doubt and you're helping people in need, but contribution in and of itself can have a positive impact on how you're feeling, even if it's not absolutely directly related to the situation at hand. So you can do something local. Most people who live in a city of almost any size now, there's a food bank. There's a place you could go down to and pack boxes for people who are in need with food, take them out to their cars, do home delivery of meals to people. There's so many different ways that you could make a difference in your own community. And at least you're being a contribution to people who are in need, because that's really what the broad topic is about, right? There are people who are suffering and are in need, and we want to be able to contribute to them to try to alleviate some of that pain that they're going through and to give us a sense that we're doing something with the information that we've been gathering. So it's not just a pool of negative information building up in our minds, but it's that information that we've consumed and now we're taking action. There's inspired action happening out of it. And if we can do that, that can lessen the upset, anxiety, whatever you're feeling right now. Being a contribution can make a huge change. Look at giving globally and look at giving locally of your time, your talents, your gifts, your service, whatever you have to give. Doing something will put you in a different mindset and make you feel like you are now part of the solution, even if it's a small part. If it's a lot of people doing it, we're going to have an impact. So look at ways that you can contribute.
And Ken and I are not affiliated with any of the things we're mentioning, but I want to add one to the list. I thought this was really creative. Somebody wrote, in first you're going to be like, what? They said, go to Airbnb or VRBO or one of those things and book a rental in Ukraine. And people think, I don't want to go there. It's not that you're going there. You know that that money will go to the person who put their house on there before all this happened. And you're obviously not going to go there, but then they're going to get money. It's a way you can directly contribute to individual families in the Ukraine. So just a thought, go on one of those rental websites, book time, and you know your contribution is going to go to them minus whatever fee those services take. The final piece, this also came from my coaching session today, which I thought was like really interesting way of looking at it, but I think it aligns with contribution. This individual was saying to me that people have always said that they are almost like happy go lucky. Like they felt as if there's like an energy about them, right? So I was like, wow, there's something about you, right? And where that connects to me is like this, and this maybe sound like magical thinking, but let's go with it, which is to say that if you just kind of think like, I'm just going to be a good person, I'm going to be good to like just the people I come across in everyday life, right? Like smiling at people, maybe giving it a little bit of an extra tip, right? Or being courteous, opening doors, doing little things, to think almost as if that little thing that you do extends out into like the rest of the world, the universe. Almost can not only make you help you. I know it did. Like the act of doing that can help you as an individual, but also just kind of it can expand. Like if we think it's an energetic force that goes out, or if it's God or the universe, like and it's karma, whatever it is, or it's like do unto others as you want them to do unto you. It's like doing your part in this small way, contributing this tiny little piece of your life, just going a little bit extra can really make a difference. And I'm quite certain it can help you get out and overcome your high anxiety.
Let's just sum this up real quick. Think about how you consume news, consume it in limited quantities. Think about going away from the visual and just reading something or perhaps listening to something. Look at your physical activity, your nutrition, make sure those are intact. And if they're not happening, add those in. Think of how you can be a contribution. And Dan had a great idea about the VRBO or the Airbnb, and I believe they're actually waiving their fees, which is pretty fantastic. But again, just to read those things really carefully, make sure what you're reading is legit. Charity Navigator is a place to check out charities to make sure that they are going to deliver the goods where you want them. And finally, caring for yourself in a spiritual way, but doing so knowing that just small incremental changes, like Dan mentioned, smile, leaving a bigger tip, holding a door for somebody, small acts of kindness can change the world. And with that, I hope all of you are able to reduce your anxiety and in the midst of all of this turmoil, to actually be a force for good.